Well, welcome to the Get Lit podcast, hosted by the Leadership Ignition team. I'm Mike Huff, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and partner, Shane Beckham.
How you doing, Mike? Good to see you,
I'm
buddy.
doing great, dude. I'm happen to be in northern Michigan, and the view in my background is it's not the UP, so I'm not all the way up there. I'm south of the bridge a little bit. It's our family lake house, not mine at all, but I like to call it mine because I just hang out here all summer when I'm not working.
Well, you've done a lion's share of work up there.
Indeed. We've had a ton of projects, been a lot of fun, been good for my mind. I just think, you got to work with your hands. I do firmly believe, I think you and I have talked about this before, that, you know, people that don't ever get out and work with their hands and build something and create it's not good for the brain. And that's what we were meant to do as human beings.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about that today as we break down some of this episode. I know we've had a bit of a hiatus, but let's bring it back in today, and we're going to pull the curtain back on something super exciting that has been developed, and we've been teaching and coaching other people on, and we call that the discipline advantage. And I couldn't be more excited about this entire thing. Again, we've been able to go out and showcase some of this. It's a accumulation of thoughts and just really cool stuff that has to do with the framework of how organizations, individuals, teams, associations, whatever platform if you will, that is willing to accept this model can learn from Mike. And we've been able to really have some good headway with this, if you will. And also wanted to share that it's going into a book, right? It's going into a book. I will say you were the brainchild behind the book, and very instrumental in the development of the discipline advantage, which I'm very thankful for. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how we can take how someone can utilize this and take the discipline index for free, right? We're giving it away. Giving
it away, baby. Yeah, what I love most about this, Shane, is that it applies to everything that's ailing your business. And, we've had a couple of posts about it on socials just to get folks kind of prepped and ready to hear about it. This will be our first chance to really tell people about it, aside from the great workshops that have already been underway and the ones that we're planning with businesses. And we're already making very important impacts to organizations that are trying to figure this out, right? And so what's cool about it is, think about it, talent development, recruiting, culture, financial performance, operational performance, growth, sales, whatever it is that's ailing businesses. This discipline advantage framework can be applied to that issue and can solve it. And really, what it is look, my favorite encapsulation we've come up with around this is organizations rarely outperform their level of discipline. And what's really cool about that we'll explore is it starts with the discipline of self. And once you achieve discipline of self, then you build discipline, which is discipline people. Then you build discipline systems, and you build discipline processes, and then you generate outperforming outcomes.
Absolutely. So let's dig in a little bit about, why does this exist? What caused this creation to come about? By the way, I like the beard, dude.
Me too. I'm just trying to be cool like you. So we've talked about this offline too. It's funny. 100% of people that I know are supporting the beard, except two. And as you mentioned, they're very important votes, right? It's my wife, not a fan, and my mother-in-law, not a fan. They both say it makes me look old, and yeah, well.
Well, right now, majority rules, sir. Majority rules.
Right. Majority rules at the moment, yes. I got a feeling it's going to be a coming and going attraction is my thoughts on that.
I mean, ride the wave, baby. Ride the wave.
Well, the good news is I'm up here with my nephews at the lake house right now. We'll get a couple more days down where they live near Lansing, and my wife's not around. So beard it is until I get back to her.
Makes you look, that little seasoned look, right? I'm seasoned.
Look, I think I'm always a decent looking dude, but I think with the beard, you just look tougher. You look tougher.
Hey, I wasn't going to say it, but I see it, bro. I see it. I get it. But so the discipline advantage, why this exists is you and I talked a lot about the evolution of not only where we wanted to go personally, but professionally. And a lot of the things that we have adapted as personal leaders, with meaning fixing ourselves, but also external leaders. And I do believe that the discipline advantage model encapsulate both of those. But one of the key concepts that we teach is it starts with the individual person. And, a lot of people have watched the episodes on, our personal testimonies, what you and I believe that was the springboard and launch board of a lot of changes in our lives and how we, redirected courses. I do believe that the personal transformations that we both had definitely forged a lot of why the discipline advantage model exists. You shared some pictures with me today, and I'm very proud of the efforts that you're making and how you're refining constantly to get better. And that's personal discipline. And again, whether you want to say this is biased or this is whatever the word is, but personal, if you're not personally disciplined, Mike, it's really difficult to exude discipline to other humans.
Yeah. Well,
Not even
it's
just
all
not even
about
just personal appearance, but just
no.
having
Just
personal discipline.
look. There's a lot of folks who've got great personal discipline that doesn't transcend fitness. That's cool. I get it. There's a lot of reasons why that's not interesting to some people. That's cool, but you can still see they're a disciplined human being. They've got structure. They've got process. They've got rhythms. They've got design, and they follow that regardless of what else is going on in their lives. Physical fitness can be one of those elements too, and I think when people see that you're not personally disciplined, it's just like any other incongruent aspect of how you portray yourself when you're trying to be a leader. And so personal discipline, whether that be you maintain your calendar or it's the age old, you actually do what you say, or the things that you expect you're willing to do yourself. And, those are all very common things that you have to start with you first. I think that's absolutely true. And it's evident to everyone when that's not true.
Absolutely agree. That's the thing. You see it. When you are personally disciplined, whether you mean to be or not, you are the thermostat of the room. Like you change the temperature, and you know that segues into the next point. When you have that level of personal discipline, it you really start to understand the motivation will be there for someone to start a new journey. It's always exciting. It's fun when the work actually starts and you're week 3 into this journey. Guess what? The motivation is this is not fun anymore. I have to give up something. I have these people that want me to do this over here, but that means I can't work out today. It'll be okay. Well, then one day leads to two to three. I see this nonstop with the gym world. Like, full disclosure, and I know a lot of gym people watch this, but we watch for trends. Anyone that gets past a 3-day trend of MIA, they're flagged, because you know why? When they get to 7, that's even more dangerous. Once you get beyond 14, we stop talking to you.
You aren't coming back. Yeah.
Hey, I'm not going to remind you that you're paying for a gym at that point, but my point is, and I'm being silly, but 3 days is when we start to pay attention, Mike, because that's how quick it can happen.
Shane, it's so true in fitness as it is in business, and that's why this applies so effectively well. Is that when you start down a path of transformation, whatever it is, whatever ails you, we had a chance to talk to an organization. We're not going to mention their names, but their issue is they're a high growth organization who have been able to perform fine for a long time, but they're now getting to a phase where they're going to go to the private equity market and they're going to sell. They're owned by PE today, and they're not ready for the next 12 to 18 months from a growth perspective. They're still living like they used to live, and communication starting to break down a little bit, and
Yeah.
performance starting to break down a little bit, right? So talk about that. I mean, what
So
was it that drove them to
absolutely.
call us?
So 2 things. Number 1, growth creates friction, right? In any detail of your life, personally, business, family. That's what I referenced that as an example. You think growth doesn't create friction? Have a baby.
Yeah, or three.
It's going to create friction in your life, things that you did not expect. Same thing happens as your business grows because if you don't have the systems in place, which more than likely you won't because you've not been there before, right? It's hard because this is new, uncharted territory. But Mike, once you have that stronger foundation of repeatable, scalable systems, it can transition with the growth. But to your point, a lot of things will what got you here won't necessarily get you there. And that
Well, it's
is
the,
the reality of it.
and it is the difference between potential and results, right? So it's this whole idea that I mean, a lot of organizations they don't have a talent problem. We talked. This is what started the whole thing was our discussion around talent versus outcome. Most organizations don't have a talent problem. What they have is an execution and a discipline problem to leverage that talent for whatever the new world is asking of them. We talked about that through what happened to me at GAT. Everyone knows about that whole story through COVID, as we've talked about that in the past, and we look, we weren't ready for that. No one could have been ready for that. But we immediately shifted our systems and our processes and our technology to get through that better than our competitors and deliver still better products. And that's what you have to be able to do. And it really wasn't some new brilliant idea. It was just having the discipline to say, here's where we are, and what got us here ain't going to get us there.
I'll take you back to a technology example before we kind of move into what is the actual discipline advantage. And hopefully we won't. I'm pretty sure I can say this, but you think about companies like you think back, Mike. We're older cats.
Yep.
How
Too old.
cool was it when you got that brand new BlackBerry phone?
Man,
Like
you could text
you,
two
you,
ways. You
you
got the
went
news
from
that
a
showed
flip
up.
phone to the BlackBerry, and buddy, you were somebody. Like
That's right.
I've got a BlackBerry.
That's
Whoa, that's got a speed wheel on it, right? I burned my speed wheel up.
right.
I broke it twice. I was a texting machine. What happened to BlackBerry? Growth creates friction. I don't have a case study on BlackBerry. This is just human observation. How many BlackBerry phones you still see running around in 2026? They didn't adapt to change, meaning, it's like anything else. Like someone can get red hot. Point is, what got you here will not get you there. And it's not just technology anymore, Mike. It's any business that you are in. If you are not willing to accept change and understand that growth is going to create that friction point, and if you just keep putting the blinders on and saying, we've done it this way and we're going to continue to do it this way, guess what your competitors doing down the road? They're utilizing AI. They're
Yep.
utilizing all this new stuff. And guess what they're going
Yep.
to do? They will slingshot past you because the foundational idea of what we're talking about, why the discipline advantage that exists is this. Discipline in one area can ignite transformations in other areas, right? So once you kind of get personally aligned and saying, if you're a leader, if you're a worker saying, I'm going to be disciplined enough to make this change in my department because I know that we have to get this done to move to the next level and start preaching that discipline to your team in ways that we can teach, the sky's the limit, dude. Like it's repeatable. And that's what we want to do. So let's talk a little bit. I'm talking about repeats. I'm talking about all the things. So I know, you may have some points of why it exists. I'm not trying to rush you, but as we go through, why does it exist? What is it? What
Yeah.
is
I
the
mean,
discipline advantage?
I'm going to add one more thing on why, and then I'm going to get into the what. So first is, and by the way, I don't know what's going on today, but the bees have decided that this is a great
No,
place to hang out.
I wasn't going to mention that, but I saw you get swarmed there a couple of times, and I was a little
Yeah.
proud of your
So
your resilience there. You just kind
yeah,
of like,
yeah,
hey, you're not going to bother me, B.
yeah. So as long as I don't smack at them, I should be okay. But if you see me running, you'll know that's why. So first, importantly, why it exists is that we've got what's called a performance gap in almost every organization. Almost every not almost every organization has a performance gap somewhere along the way, and that's the distance between an organization's potential and its consistent results. And so and what we're doing with what we call the discipline index is measuring that gap. And so we measure that gap and say, look, in these 9 elements, if you include the AI readiness component of it, which I think every organization needs to evaluate for themselves, here's how far you are from where you truly want to be. And we tell you first what are the 8 elements outside of AI readiness that are crucial to your long-term growth and success. And then we have you measure against them. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But you know, let me give you the core definition. I'm going to read the core definition because I think it's important that we get this exactly right. It says the discipline advantage is the organizational strength created when discipline leaders build discipline systems that produce discipline execution. How awesome is that? Right. So you build this strength because you've got disciplined leaders, you and I, who are focused on being disciplined about ourselves and about the way we lead. We build discipline systems. This is not about you just do whatever's the flavor of the day and you grab whatever's willy-nilly, and then you produce discipline execution. There's expectations around performance. And I think when when I first drafted this and we started talking about it, the word discipline concerned me a little bit, to be honest with you, because that to people feels negative. It isn't. It's empowering. After we spent more time workshopping and frameworking and building it, discipline is empowering. But when you hear that word, it does feel a little confining. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, the core definition is amazing, but here's the thing, Mike. What does it mean to be a disciplined leader?
Well, first on discipline leadership, we're going to talk about discipline leadership, discipline systems, and then discipline execution. Leaders create planning. That's the most important role for leaders, to make sure everybody knows what in the heck we're trying to accomplish. Leaders then model those standards. That's the other discipline that's critically important. Leaders confront reality and make decisions. Whatever's going on, you have to lead through it. You have to admit where you are, whether it's good, bad, or it's outside influences or inside influences, and solve against it. And leaders build trust and accountability. And so if you do those four things, that is our definition of disciplined leadership. And trust and accountability doesn't happen unless you are congruent with who you say you are. And so that's, for me, Shane, that is what we're trying to get across in disciplined leadership.
Yeah, absolutely agree. During a presentation that we were able to do with the company last week, one of the words that was repeated probably 100 times, and I warned them, was clarity. I probably said that 100 times. If someone had a clicker, it was probably close to 100 times. But the reality of this is, if you've got good strategic clarity, okay, that is a big component of it. Now, there's a lot of layers that I don't want to get too deep into the podcast that come along with that. But you have to know where you want to go, right? You can't just say, well, in a couple of years, we want to do this. No, you have to be very specific about what you want to do and where you want to be in those 2 years.
Well, and I would just ask, any leaders listening to this podcast, how many of you either A, have no written down strategic plan at all, or B, have one that, I'll give you a C as well, haven't refreshed that strategic plan in 2 or 3 years, or 3, you wrote it because your board required it or your PE firm required it, but it's not real. I mean, and that means you don't have clarity, because if you didn't spend the time with your team, you can't write it by yourself, by the way. And I know a lot of leaders, CEOs who've done that. You got to write this with your team so everyone's fully aligned. If you don't have that strategic plan, you have no clarity on where your team has no clarity.
They don't know what you want. And then you get frustrated because if it lives
all up here,
and it doesn't come out and transfer, then there is no strategic clarity. And to your point, even this, from what I've seen, Mike, transitioning into the smaller business world, corporate organizations like where I came from, the paving industry, there is very high prowess with strategic planning. Okay. It may not always come, there's a lot of gaps, okay, in that.
Because there's discipline along the processes and systems along the way that's missing, that there's gaps all the way down to the frontline guys. Yes.
But there is a lot of strategic planning. What I see now as I've morphed into the small business world, myself included, when it gets down to take gym ownership, I know a ton of gym owners. There's zero strategic planning. What do you mean you don't know where you want to be in 90 days?
Right.
What about 1 year from now, 3 years from now? What's your plan? And I've even been beating my own daughter over the head with her small business and her clothing store. I'm like, you have to build a performer. What's that? And I get it. You have to be taught these things. If it's your first time,
you just don't know. Sure.
I'm like, well, you need to know how much you need to make versus how much you want to make versus how much you're spending. It's a simple formula when you're small. Obviously, that expands when you get bigger, Mike. But my point is, a lot of small business owners, and I know it's not even just small business owners, it's bigger ones too, but I've noticed that it progressively seems to get worse. And I think that is, if you want to be the best at what you do, no matter what size your company is, you have to be a disciplined leader and apply all four of those points. Strategic leadership. To your second point, you have to model it. Okay. What does that mean to me? Well, one of the worst things that I can say about the Marine Corps is I had several Marine leaders that said, what? Do as I say, not as I do. That's the worst leader there ever is, man. Like, if you can't model that, I'll never follow you. And that goes back to, Mike, you get into a lot of the standards here. And when you model the standard, it goes twofold. It goes exactly into your next point. When I have high standards for the people that work for me, it goes right into the next thing is I confront the reality of the situation. And if they will not hold those standards, one of the things I in the workshops that you'll hear me say a lot, I refuse to lower myself to your standard. You know why? Because if I lower myself to your standard, we don't have any damn standards.
That's right.
We just modify the standards for one person. If I modify it for one, I got to modify for everybody that works for me. I
That's right.
refuse.
Yep.
And as a disciplined leader, no matter if it's your friend, your cousin, your golf buddy, it doesn't matter, Mike. If you want to take the business to the next level, you have to model it and you have to be willing to make the uncomfortable decisions. Because if you do, I truly believe your fourth point comes true. With the entire team, you build trust and you build accountability, because when you hold someone accountable, if you walk past the problem is now the standard.
Yep.
You just accepted it in front
Yep.
of everybody. Can't do that.
Well, you can't do when you do that, and many people do that. You've not only accepted it, you certified it. You certified that as the new allowable standard. Let me tell you a funny story about my days at GAT. You know, we had 80 stations, 6,000 employees, and I was an unpopular guy with a lot of our team members because there's one
You
thing
don't
that
say. Oh,
would,
whoa.
well, there's, there, because I didn't lower my standards, and
Sure.
and there's some things that just annoy our frontline team members. Something that annoyed them to no end was the fact that the rule when I got there was no hoodies, no hoodie sweatshirts, none. There are other organizations out there that do what we do that are issuing hoodies as uniform standard, and hoodies are very if you didn't know, hoodies are extremely popular right now. Warm
Right.
climates, cold climate, doesn't matter. And so, people say, "Oh, my neck gets cold." I'm like, okay, we're a neck gaiter. And so I would go station to station. I always hold a town hall every station I go to, meet with our customers and meet with our team. Then I meet with our front line, and every single operation, I would get "What's the deal with the hoodies?" Despite the number of memos and communications we put out, Shane, and the deal with the hoodies was there are 4 deaths in the industry in 5 years where a hoodie was ingested into an ingestion point, or somebody got it wrapped around something. Point is, I care about you. I know it sucks that you can't wear your fashion item, but there aren't going to be any hoodies in my organization. And you'll never see me wear one. And if I see you wearing one, don't think I won't pull you off the ramp instantaneously and make sure you get rid of your damn hoodie. Would it have been a hell of a lot easier than answering that question every single time I walked into a station? Just let them wear hoodies and have breakaway hoodies or something? Yeah, would have been. That wasn't the standard. And I was not going to lower myself to that standard because it was important for their own safety that we did not do that.
Absolutely. You modeled it, you confronted it, and you built the trust and accountability to where eventually everybody knew this is,
Yep.
hey, we ain't wearing hoodies.
Yeah. What they really knew was, hey, when Mike's coming, don't wear any hoodies.
Yeah, right.
Because our GMs did not hold the same standard. There were plenty of times I'd walk into a station, there'd be people wearing hoodies, and then the
tough.
conversation's way different. It's not just with the team member who's wearing it, because that will happen, but it will be with their supervisor, with their ops manager, and the discussion I have with their general manager is not pleasant. It's
Right.
not pleasant.
As it should not be.
Because they didn't live our number one core value, which was live safe. And how can you care about anything else if you don't care about living safe? Anyway, let's move on. So the next
disciplined leadership.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just going to say disciplined leadership is the first, right? That is probably the top tier, right? Would you agree with that?
You have to have that first before anything else matters. Absolutely true.
Now, what's next?
Discipline systems. And so, you've talked a lot about this, and And we've quoted a number of books that made this very clear to us, in particular, Traction with EOS and understanding, systems will keep you alive. That's it's you don't have to default to you won't lower your level to your level of your talent as long as you have systems because those will always bring the talent to the middle ground on it. And so there what we mean by discipline systems, you have to have priorities and responsibilities that are made visible. What is it we're trying to achieve and who is accountable for achieving it in every facet of, like we talked about before, talent or culture or whatever. All those things need discipline systems and they need somebody who's accountable and they need to know what the priorities in those elements are. You have meetings, communication, and follow through operate through repeatable rhythms, right? So we've talked about this a million times. There could be ad hoc meetings if there's an emergency crisis, but there should be a standard for, how often are we going to review our talent development process? How often are we going to review what our internal net promoter scores are from a culture perspective? What is our leadership, what our senior leadership team versus our executive leadership team versus our regional leadership team? What are their rhythms and what does that agenda look like so that bubbles up to the rest of the organization so we can all see it, it's all visible and clear. So those repeatable rhythms are extremely important. And then strong performance. This is the one thing that it's so hard to get organizations to understand. Every organization has some level of systems, but they always have a rock star or two or three that pulls out the heroics to get things done. And that becomes the norm. That becomes then how they operate. Your sales numbers are behind. Let's call Tony. Tony's the greatest sales guy in the world. That dude's going to get us Q3 nailed down. Tony, we need another 40% from you. Well, if you would have had a system around when you were going to manage your pipeline and how you're going to discuss when you were behind and how you're going to navigate, you would need Tony every Q4. Guess what happens to Tony? He gets sick of being the guy that picks up the
Tony
dead weight.
leaves. That's what happens to
Exactly.
Tony.
He goes and gets paid more somewhere else because everybody knows Tony's a rock star. So how about you don't do that? And instead, the third item is you have strong performance so you don't have to worry about constant heroics.
So good points. Now, one of the things that you talked about priorities and responsibilities and making them visible. Number 2 was meetings, communications, decisions, follow through, right? Repeatable. And then performance, not depending on one person, but depending on the system. So the team. So one of the examples we talk about in our presentations is, let's say Tony gets not, I won't say taken out, poor Tony, but let's say Tony cannot come in. Something happens to Tony. Well, what the hell's fixing to happen? Not good, right? Because we're depending on Tony to meet quota. Tony is incapacitated. So now what? Then everybody's like, what are we going to do? Nobody knows the answers. You know why? Because there was no priority responsibility set on the actual system that would get us to where we wanted to be. A lot of things that I hear, and I heard some of this last week, was, well, nobody knows what the right hand's doing to the left hand, and we have all this stuff coming in from all these different directions. I met and had lunch with a former colleague the other day. We have this system that does this system does this, and if we have the greatest system that will combine all of these, but we've got one department that won't use it. It's everywhere because unless you can get everybody to buy in to the same systems, Mike, and that goes back to being a disciplined leader. This is where your executive leadership team has to come together and say, okay, for our strategic plan, let's solve why are we using 18 different apps to do one thing? Just a random example. There's millions. You know how much money can be saved that people don't think about because you know why? Those are ancillary. Well, when you get into my world, you think about every penny, right? So I have to think about those things. When I was in corporate America, I didn't think about that crap. Didn't care. This is what we use for this, because there's enough money to cover that, right? But think about how tighter and more money you can get for your budget. But your point is, you have a meeting about that, Mike, but here's the difference between what we're saying and what happens a lot of times. A lot of times you have meetings about meetings, or you have meetings and you solve absolutely nothing. Are you leaving that meeting with a clear directive for what needs to happen, what rhythm is next, how is this repeatable, and who is responsible for what? When's the deadline?
When are you going to show up with it?
When's the deadline?
And then when you get to the next meeting and they don't show up with it, That has to be called out, and that has to be an unacceptable behavior inside your organization. This is where discipline starts to sound like it's negative. It isn't. It is. It's not even a
Well, it's not a
a
punishment.
negative. No, it's not. It's not a negative. It's just, hey Shane, hey, you're supposed to come today with 6 new sales targets for us to get after. You got them? You don't have them, Shane. Understand, our process requires us to show up at these meetings, prepare, ready to go. If you can't do that, you need to raise your hand in advance so we don't come here and waste everybody's time. Let's not do that next week. Next week, have your 6 items. It changes the dialogue versus, oh, okay, well, let me know when you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to your point, discipline's not punishment. It's not rigidity, and it's not micromanagement. It goes back to, I'm going to confront reality,
Yes.
and I'm going to hold people accountable and make decisions for us to move forward.
And by the way, it's not because the CEO or the SVP or whoever said so. It's because we all agreed this is what we were going to go do.
Right.
And
this is what we signed off on.
And so now you're not letting down your boss, you're letting down your team. And that's a whole different environment than what gets created in a lot of roles today.
All right, Mike. So you've got leadership.
Yep.
You've got systems, right? Those are,
yep.
we're going fast, but these are highly important targets.
Well, because there's so much to this, right? There's many layers to this advantage. Yes.
So you got leadership, systems. What's next?
Disciplined execution, Shane. We talked about this a little bit, and we just kind of commented on it just there as we talked about systems, which is you take that strategic plan and you create actions throughout your organization to go achieve it. Sounds simple. Sounds like, yeah, well, that's what you do, right? It's not, okay, but people don't. Businesses don't. It doesn't get all the way down to the frontline team members. It doesn't get all the way. Sometimes it doesn't get beyond the executive leadership team. It's like, we all know we're doing this stuff, but they've not taken the time then to break that down into what the accounting department's going to do to meet those objectives and what the HR department's going to do to meet those objectives. And when you get to operations, maybe the RVPs or whoever knows, but the GMs don't know. And certainly the guy running the paver doesn't know. Certainly the person marshaling the aircraft doesn't know. Why don't they know? And that's what you have to do if you want to be disciplined, is have disciplined execution all the way through the ranks. Second, as we talked about before, owners, deadlines, and measures and consequences, most importantly, are clear. Because the problem is that I think a lot of people do write pretty decent action plans. A lot of organizations create pretty decent action plans. But the truth is, most organizations do not have consequences for failure to enact. Just think, you're a leader out there, whatever level of leader you are, or hell, you're a frontline person, you're frustrated with what your leadership's doing for you. How much more effective, how much faster could your organization run if there were actual consequences for those who didn't do what they were supposed to do? You don't count on Tony. You count on the systems and everybody to be rowing the same direction. And third, teams consistently finish what matters most. This is one of the things that's hard for a lot of businesses. There's like you heard in your discussion with the team that we engaged, there are a billion priorities, and there's I think it's Atomic Habits that talks about the whirlwind. I can't remember. I think it is Atomic Habits. It talks about the whirlwind, and the whirlwind is all the stuff that comes into your daily task. Got it. I will handle what has to be handled because it's an emergency, but I will say 99.9% focus on that which matters most, which is the strategic execution of the business. Thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, they kind of sum up a little bit. There is 2 points. Number one, the goal is to get greater clarity, right?
Yes.
Executionally, systemly, and leadershiply. And then also, we want greater clarity, we want greater freedom, we want greater speed, and we want greater consistency.
That's another key, Shane. You said a very important key word there we have not talked about yet, is freedom, which is you can't do all this stuff from a disciplined system and then still micromanage your team. Dang it. You can. You will slow everything down. The other word you use was speed. You have to, once you build this, and we all agree this is where we're going, and we all have our plan, and we all have our, you got to let folks run, man. You have the talent you need now. You got to let them run so you get that speed and you get the freedom to execute.
Decision speed is something we'll talk a little bit deeper about as we move forward, but absolutely agree. And you hear that a lot with people we talk to is, well, I have 15 layers that I have to go through to make one decision. Well, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but sometimes more is not more.
Yes.
More is not better, right? You are employing these people as executive leaderships. positions. That's what you're paying them to do. So let them be that position. Okay. I'm not saying people don't, but a lot of people don't. But the last point that I'll reinforce here, Mike, is just accountability is the actual respect when expectations are clear with a follow through that is fair. Okay. You set the standard, you model it, you provide the system, and then you execute it. Nobody can not argue that you are moving things in the right directions, and that's how that accountability and trust is really going to resound.
Yeah, man, the people around you want you to be held accountable just as they're held accountable. It is a sign of respect, an act of respect, as long as everything was clear and follow through is fair, meaning everyone gets treated the same way, that we're all held accountable the exact same way, and the expectations were put in the front end. Couldn't agree more. So Shane, if the discipline is the bridge between potential and performance, how does an organization know where that bridge is weak? It brings us to the framework. Now, we have not even talked about the framework yet. That's a high level. Here's what we're going to achieve. And ultimately, we're going to talk about the discipline index that measures that framework.
So I want to get through these. I don't want to fly through them, but I want to cover them pretty quickly because we've already hit on a lot of these as we've had the general discussion about what it is. So now when you talk about the 6 stages of discipline framework, number 1 is you have to discover. You have to confront reality about where you are right now. Okay. That includes, that includes your leadership team. That includes you. That includes your leadership team. That includes your culture, your systems, and performance. You have to discover where you are right now and give realistic answers. Okay. Because that's so important to know where you are right now and truthful answers. When we get scores back and it's 5s across the board, we're probably not going to work with you. You know why? Because you are not being honest with yourself. Nobody is that good. Okay. I don't care
If you
who
are,
you
you
are.
don't need us. Don't pay us. You don't need us. We, in
Exactly.
fact, tell us what you're doing.
Number 2, you want to identify the friction. Okay. Maybe you're not growing, but you're stalling. You're going backwards. Okay. You don't always have to be growing. Friction comes in many forms, right? I can't get any traction. I can't grow. I'm going backwards. So you have to pick up where's your blind spots and where's your roadblocks? Where are they? They're there. And that's the root of the problem. And if you're not finding them, you're just going to keep beating your head against the wall. Third thing on discovery, Mike, is just establish an honest baseline before establishing practical solutions.
Yeah, man.
You
This one
have
thing
to know
leaders,
where you are,
yeah,
man.
so when a lot of leaders, when they first hear of that problem, whatever the problem is, they're they already have a solution in mind before they've even diagnosed what the hell's actually going on. So very important, right? That first one, you know, confront reality, discover, so critically important, or everything else is built on, you know, a very tipsy turvy framework. Tipsy
Yep,
turvy.
absolutely.
Something else. Yeah.
The old tipsy turvy, baby.
It's not a thing, but okay.
You got to know where you are, right? You have to
Right.
discover and you have to be real. Second thing you want to do is you want to align. Okay.
Yep.
I've made my discovery. Now I want to create what?
Clarity.
Clarity.
Yeah.
I want to create clarity. I want to align the team. One of the things that I speak a lot on, Mike, because you too, both of us did it, different formats, different places, but we started at the ground and we went up. That makes us a little bit unique because a lot of executive leaders have not done that. And that's okay. That's okay. But when executive leadership makes a strategic decision, they are sitting in rooms for days and hours defining how all this change will come about. And then you pass it down and you don't give any context. Now, what do you think the guy on the line is going to think? Why? What does this mean for me? And what the hell's going on, right? So if you don't align your entire team, number 1, you're going to create what? More friction by trying to make things better. You just made it worse. That's how it works. I do it with my team. I'm getting a lot better, but I used to do that. I would create more unnecessary friction because I wouldn't give them the full plan. Number 2, you have to make sure that there's no competing agendas or unclear ownership. When I know people watch this, and I have a couple of people right now, and we have a new person, and there's some misunderstandings. There's some feathers ruffled because I have not defined some clear paths of demarcation about who's doing what. And when that happens, guess what, Mike? You're not aligned and there's friction.
Yeah, for
Number
sure.
three is make sure every organization is solving the same problem. If you don't identify what's been discovered as the problem, how the hell can you tell someone to help you solve it? Hey, we're
Well, and the
not making
hardest
any money. Okay, why are we not making any money? What's the root cause of that?
and the
Because you
hardest
guys
part
are
around
working, you're working on the wrong parts. What parts do I need to be working on?
Yeah, and the hardest part around this element of it is personality. It's the same thing as the frontline guy or your peer, a senior level leader that's your peer, and you're not aligned. You have different feelings and thoughts about what priorities are. It happens in every organization, which is why this is so critical that you start with what it truly is a problem and you all agree, and then you all agree on the solution. And then once you do that, the rest is butter.
Easy to say, hard to do, but if you
That's
develop the
right.
discipline advantage model, Mike, and truly follow it all the way through, these things become a lot more concise.
Yes.
You're no longer throwing darts in a moving dartboard. You have leadership systems and execution. And if you follow that model, you'll become aligned. There's no way you can't, which leads us into the next thing. You want to equip, you want to build capability. We talked a lot about bench strength in our last meeting. Are you preparing for this growth? Are you just promoting because someone's been in that position for 10 years? That's great. But if they're not the person to run the division, then you are making a fantastic mistake. I've been there. I've seen it. They have to be the right human being. Where are you with your growth meter? If you know where you want to be in 2 years, what are you doing today to prepare your team and your future leaders to run that division tomorrow? Because if you wait until you're 90 days out, not great. So develop leadership behaviors and communication skills early, Mike. Number two, introduce useful operating tools and management practices for everybody to follow. We're all going to, follow this metric and read this book. I mean, it may be that simple because you and I do that a lot. I just gave my entire team the five dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Leoncini, or I'm not Leoncini, however you pronounce his last name. I probably butchered that. That's okay.
You did. That's cool. He'll forgive you. He's going to watch this podcast. He'll forgive you.
It's maniacal, my friend.
That's right.
So I gave them all that book, and I hope they read it. I'm not going to go on this first book I want to see how this goes. But point being, equip, give tools, and then give the ability, not just the instruction for the standard.
Again, easy to say, hard to do because there's financial barriers to making changes in tools and soft and decisions. There's uh, personal stake. Some guy brought in this system 18 years ago and he's still there and he loves this system, but it's the wrong one for you now. And so you have to manage that carefully.
That's a great
Uh,
point. That is a great point, man, because people will hold on to systems way too long because it's what we've always used. And then this guy that championed it is still there. Great point.
well, and then the last thought I had there is that you create these standards that you absolutely must achieve. You absolutely must achieve to get to that end game. But if we do these three things, then Tommy's going to be mad, or it's going to. I got to go to the board and ask for $500,000 that I didn't have in the budget. But you have to do it, or you're not going to execute it. And that's that last point. You gave the people the instruction, but you didn't give them the ability. You were
One of the
unwilling to do
most
the hard work.
wonderful things that I've heard across my construction career. You are 100% the most qualified and best person for the job, but I can't give it to you because I'll hurt his feelings.
Yeah,
I've been told that.
yeah.
Guess what?
Yep.
Tony left.
Yeah,
This
right.
this Tony this Tony
That Tony,
left.
that Tony bailed.
Execute, Mike. Turning priorities into action. Development, alignment, equipment, execution. Assign the ownership and deadlines and not be afraid. This is where we are. This is the target. We can talk through it if there's going to be some changes, but this is what we have to do by this date. Now you have to have clarity to get to this point, right? So that's why we're clicking down the list. Establish accountability and operating cadence. One of the key words is cadence. You have to all be marching in the same direction. This is how we're all going to do it, okay? Every team is accountable for this piece to make the culmination of all of this come together and be whole. Lastly, is reduce the gap between decisions and completed work. Speed to decision, I think, is probably one thing that we'll find the most gap in, Mike, in a lot of companies as we continue to push the index out. You can model the standards all you want, but if your speed to decision is the lowest number on your index, that's a massive gap because that is costing you a lot of time, money.
And Shane, I do think that one is the most difficult for most leaders. And the reason it's difficult, there's a multitude. There's Johnny's feelings. That's one problem why people don't make the decision they know they need to make. There is costs implications. There is, if I make this decision and I'm wrong, I'm personally liable to my boss, to my board, to my whatever. And that's probably the one that stops people most often is that. And then there's just the whole conflict avoidance. There just is this natural tendency to want to avoid conflict. But back it all the way up to what we said at the beginning. So you have to have disciplined leadership before anything else is possible. And all four of those things go away if you've got disciplined leadership. And one of the things that I've just been focused on in my career is to eliminate those thoughts from my mind whatsoever. I'm paid to do this job. This job requires me to do X today. I'm going to do X today. And I'm going to do it the best way possible to limit Johnny's hurt feelings and to try to make it as inexpensive as possible and to try to make the board understand why it's critically important. But I'm not going to be afraid to tell them that's critically important. That's my job. And if they decide I'm an idiot and they want to fire me as a result, so be it. That's what I'm paid to do today. And that's hard for a lot of leaders to get their heads around.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that, Mike. All right, so we went from execution now, or execute, into optimization, optimize, improve what works. And this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about because you're not ever going to eliminate all friction, okay? But you can reduce it. How can we reduce friction? Well, how are we doing a bunch of things how can we reduce the complexity of what we're trying to do? How many layers of the cake does this have to go through before someone can eat a slice, right? Or whatever.
Frustrating or frontline leaders, just the frontline leader, whether it be a supervisor or general manager, whatever, that they sit there and go, why am I doing 4,000 things that are all the same thing? Or why do I need to send this report to this guy and this guy? Because there is so much complexity as it gets further from the center because everybody's pushing things down out to the field to get things done. And so one of the first things we try to diagnose when we get together with an organization, Shane, you and I, is what is it you're asking the frontline teams to do administratively, operationally, financially, from a growth perspective, and simplify so that we can say, do you really need to do that? He's already got the information. Why do you also need that information? Is there a way for us to use a system that information all goes in together? But critically important. Didn't mean to stop you. I just think this
No,
was
that's
huge.
absolutely right because it's a reduction of friction. It's improving the process and the decision speed that gets it made. And the last point of that is AI. Leverage it. It's not always going to be perfect, but if it can help your decision speed by some level of implementation, do not run from it. Study it, guide it, make sure it's correct before you push it down. Utilize it. Other companies are. And, one of the things that I've heard recently at one of the facilities we were at was quote management. And they were getting quotes for someone requesting to buy a part, for example. And one of the teams, like we give exercises to where they can identify a friction point. We're getting quotes coming from 8 different places. I have no idea who's handling what place and how. Decision speed, clarity. It's great to have that many lead sources coming in, but I compared that back to the gym because if you're into that, I said, think about it this way. Doesn't matter if you're a gym or you're a manufacturer of a part for someone that needs that thing. Speed to lead matters because they are a lead. They're looking to buy something that you have and they need it right now. And the convenience factor of humans now, if you don't answer them within a certain amount of time, usually almost immediately, guess what they're going to do? They're going to the next person on the Google list and they're going to keep trying until someone answers them. So if you got something coming in from 15 places, that's great. But if you're only getting back to them when you can, they're gone. You have lost that sale. It's completely gone. Is there something out there that can funnel that into one thing to where one person can monitor it and make a decision quickly on you need this, you need this, you need this, and it's a high priority, right? So definition of optimization, right? It's simple yet very important.
Well, and I'll just say, look, organizations that are afraid of AI, that don't understand AI, that are having their legal team study it for the next 6 months, you're missing huge opportunities. Now, look, I get it. You have to protect your company, and you got to make sure that you've got the tools that keep you safe and warm. But Shane, you and I, just in our own business, how much have we leveraged AI to build the leadership ignition team? A, a ton. We probably know more about AI than most organizations that exist, or 10 times, 80 times our size.
Use a ton of it.
And so solving that problem, easy enough. If they're coming into an email box or several email boxes, you just have an AI bot that's monitoring that email box for incoming quotes, and you dump it all into your analytical model that gives you a summary every day. Here's your note, and that you bought nothing. You bought nothing. You just put together a model that makes perfect sense. So anyway, we're huge on it, and we think it is the wave of the future. People are scared of it mostly because they're worried about job loss. I don't think it's going to result in massive job loss in a big way. It's like all new technology is going to result in job shift, but I think as we start talking to organizations about how they're leveraging how our AI readiness measurement as part of our index, what do you know about it? Who's using it? By the way, if you're a leader listening to this podcast, people are using it in your business today, whether you like it or not. So wouldn't it be good to have a disciplined system around how and when and where we use it, so that you can protect your company from things you don't want to execute on? Sorry.
Absolutely agree with
That
that.
could
Nope.
that you know what? Let's make that our next podcast anyway. I think AI utilization is a good one for about an hour's talk.
I agree. I agree. So after you optimize it, Mike, you have to sustain it. You have to make it repeatable. You have to make it, how can I hand this down to the next tier and the next tier or the people that come in behind me? This has to become a repeatable process. If not, don't even start with number one, because if you don't get down to the point to where you have a repeatable, executable system, then in my opinion, Mike, you have failed because number one, you can't measure it because you're not able to repeat it. And if you're not able to repeat it, you can't collect the right data because you're getting different bullet points on the chart, right? You're shotgun spraying instead of having defined accuracy. Number two, the internal capability of understanding. How am I developing someone if this is not a repeatable job? Like if it's going to change from me to him and from him to him, we have no standards. There's no clarity. It's just the wild, wild west. I'm doing whatever I feel like I need to do as a leader. Then Mike's going to come in behind me. He's going to have a totally different set of rules. Now you've got whiplash with your people that are under them because they don't know what's up or down. And lastly is we've always done it this way. That didn't work the first time the way I thought it would. Let's scrap this and go back to what we used to do. It takes time to get a process that's repeatable, Mike. It
Well, and
takes
here
time.
and here's one that's even more dangerous. I've been recently back in the job market a little too soon for my own personal. Not sure. I'm excited, but I think but one of the things that I heard along the way in one of the discussions was, hey, we've got people who've been here 30 plus years, and they're important to us because they know all the crap we tried before, so that we never try it again. And what was running through my head in that conversation was, well, what if you just had a really poor execution in your discipline, and it would have worked just fine, but you didn't have proper discipline in your execution, and you allowed it to fall back. And so that's dangerous too. And that's one that people don't even think about is, yeah, we tried it before and failed. Don't do that again. Well, did you really? Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What context, what sample size, you know, I've done that with classes,
Yeah,
large classes. It didn't work. And I've reevaluated the data, the numbers. I've polled members. And guess what? We've relaunched and now they're successful. You can't be afraid to look at things and try something again that didn't go the way you wanted it to the first time. You may have to adjust a few of the things that you did or have someone else running it, but you can't be afraid. But that's all part of the discovery process. Like that takes it all the way back to the top, right? All right, did that work? No. All right, well, here's the discovery. Why not? And then if you click down through the 6 points of the model that we've built, it's going to tell you whether or not you should try it again.
correct.
So how
Well,
you
I'll just close this up with all this that we've talked. So that is the discipline advantage framework. That's what we leverage, and we leverage it. That was kind of very macro, but we leverage that all the way down across your business. However you need to have that engaged. And I'm telling you what, man, I just think it's extremely powerful. And so the key of this is transformation is not an event. It's not us coming in to speak to you. It's not a Kaizen session. It's not a senior leadership team annual meeting. It's a discipline. It is transformation is we are going to achieve our objectives. Here's where they are. And here's all the things we got to do to get there. Here's our blind spots. Here's the equipment we need. Here's the process we have to put in place. Here's the cadence we need to follow. And here's the measurements that we're gonna execute to get there.
Mike, I think we're going to probably have to break this up into two segments. We got excited, but I want to say this, and we can talk a little bit about how we want to handle that, even live. But it's unique when you bring someone that's not in your organization in to do what we are doing. Number one, we are not emotionally connected to you or your business. And you don't realize how much that matters. We have no connections, whether you fail or win. We want you to win, obviously, but we are not connected to you in any of those ways. So what we are coming in to do, Mike, effectively is we have no preconceived notions of what any human in that organization is capable of. We don't care. What we care about is what the index has told us and specific questions we can ask about the discipline advantage model. Once we define those parameters, then we can do many different things. We can give an executive leader workshop to where we just cover a presentation and can help you and your team get better, right? Collectively, without going too deep into the weeds, without breakout workshops, or we can spend as much time as you want with the team and say, let's start with number one. Where's the biggest friction point in each division? But we have to start with what is your most important division, because when you do that, Mike, all of the problems and all of the things are there and everybody knows what they are, but you're busy running the business every day and there's never any time to solve what can make it even better to get you to the next step. Because if you do, you're not pushing the agenda forward to try to make money for the day. So people get so lost in that they lose the vision of what we could be here if we would just stop, evaluate, discover, align, execute, optimize, all the things, and then sky's the limit.
Well, and the coolest thing about what you just said is the flexible way in which we can engage. And so it's a speaker session at a conference that gets people fired up and wants to know more. It's a in-depth workshop with a team that's trying to figure out, what's next for them so they can start to build out their own framework. And then it's the 6 to 12 month sessions of follow-up where we're talking to you every week on Zoom or whatever. We're going through our progress plan against all the elements that are clear. But the best part, Shane, is we know before we ever get in the room what the issue is or issues are because we've got the discipline index. So the framework gives us the path, but the discipline index helps us clearly identify where an organization should begin in each of their key elements. And we're not going to have time to go through this in detail today, as you said.
No.
I think we do break this up.
A separate episode. Yeah. We can start with the discipline index and what it means to somebody. I think this gives somebody a good idea of what the framework is, why we created it, what it is, who it applies to, which is basically everybody. And then when we run this back in our next episode, I think it'll be great to start with the discipline index, which is part of the model, But now this is where the discovery begins. It's the first pillar that we just talked about, right? And it's one of the most important, which is why obviously it's first. It gives clarity. Now, I know we're going to talk about this in the next episode, but the discipline index, someone can take it now. Like if you said, "Hey, this is exciting for me. I want to go ahead and take this," but just know we don't base your entire company off of one index. We have to have multiple sets from leadership. Now, if you're a smaller business owner, yes, that there's differences and variance of what we want to see, but it's a collection. Okay. We want to know, okay, where's your leader, your top leader? It's not a grade, Mike. It's a mirror. And that's the difference. People look at this as grades. Well, this is what my CEO graded us at. No, this is a mirror, meaning this is where we are now. So this is the mirror, but this is where we need to be. So these are the what? The operational gaps that we have to close to get to here. Now, not everybody may agree with those numbers, but I promise you, once you start hearing patterns, which is what happened to me last week, the patterns I heard in their room aligned with the CEO's discipline index. It did.
And in that team, I think we've got back 10 or 11 now, and their scores are not highly variable. Not only highly variable in their mirrors of the overall score, but the categories, which I'm going to touch on quickly because I think I want to tease that out to get people excited about thinking about it very quickly, and then we'll move on. Each of these categories are very closely aligned amongst the 10 or so responses we've gotten back. So what will happen now is we'll amalgamate those responses. We will compare them with the CEO's original response for his executive review, but we'll complete a full index assessment for the entire team of the amalgamated responses so they get a chance to see, okay, here as a group collective, here's how we feel about where we are on the story.
Throwing around a big
So
word. You're throwing around a big word there, Mike.
I got a few. I try not to use them with you, man. I try to keep
I'm a wordsmith, but I'm not heard that. I've heard the word. I know what it means, but that is a rare use. I'm proud of that.
a rare proper use of the word amalgamating. So what do we measure in the index? And we're going to tell you how to get to it, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. First is we've talked about this already. Leadership. We're going to want you to assess your leadership team. By the way, it's a 10 to 15. If it's 15 minutes, it's because you're really thinking. If it's 10 minutes, it's because you're putting in the effort. If it's 2 minutes, it's because you don't really care. You're just responding to get through it. So it's there's 5 questions in each of these sections that's trying to assess what is the capabilities and the performance of your current leadership function. Then how about strategic clarity? We talked about this a lot. Does everyone know? Are they all aligned? Are they all focused on the same thing? Number 3, importantly, communication. I'm guessing if strategic clarity isn't great, it's probably because communication probably isn't great. 4th, critically important, is culture. You could have great strategic vision, you could have great communication, but if that communication is negative or the culture is toxic, it's very difficult to move beyond to the next step. The next section's around accountability. Are people held accountable if they don't show? You might have a great culture. Everyone loves everybody. That's because no one's ever accountable for anything, right? It's just sort of kumbaya and everyone's just having a good time. And then the next is execution. How good are you as an organization at getting stuff done you said you were going to do? And then operational excellence. Does it result in the performance outcomes that you expected? Do the numbers match all the effort, design, and process that you put in? And then a very important one is talent development. We talked about it a bunch of times today. Do you have the tools and processes to get your team ready for the next level? Are you ensuring that you've got 9box and that you've got people slated for what they have to do next to get to the next level? Are you preparing for eventual leader turnover? Then the last component of this is technology and AI readiness. And this is an optional module. We don't require everything else. You start taking the assessment, you have to answer all the questions. This one's optional. Some organizations don't even want to talk about it, but I do think it's critically important just to know where you are, because as we said, I'd be willing to bet it's going on inside your organization today. So the way we do this typically is, the first time we have contact with an organizational leader, we say, hey, just take the index. It's really cool because the way we've built this model is you'll take the index and within 5 minutes, you're going to get a full detailed assessment back with leadership insights, every element of what's wrong from your own viewpoint in the organization, what to do about that. 3 things to get after right now for each of those elements to try to get after it. And then, that's your personal score that you get back. And then if you deploy this to the rest of your team, we'll pull that together, we'll amalgamate it, pull that together to get you the scores for the entire organization and give you that sort of combined entry level point. And so, Shane, how do folks get to that today? How do they just go take it for free?
So two ways. Number one, I'm gonna encourage you, sir, that we dropped it into the chat. Is there a way to drop it into the chat of the podcast?
Yeah, we can pin it. We can pin it as the first comment in each of the
Okay.
distribution channels.
I think that's probably a good way to get
Oh,
it out there. Is let's
yep,
pin
we'll
that.
do
Let's
that.
pin. We're gonna pin it here so you can find it here. But if for some reason it doesn't happen the way it should or something doesn't work right, I challenge you to go to our website, not only to find the discipline index, but it's a rebranded website. There's a lot of great stuff on there. I'll give credit where credit is due. Mike has taken the website on and he has done a fantastic job with the rebrand. I cannot take any credit for that. There's many things I can't, but he's done great with that. So that's www.leadershipignitionteam.com. You can find us there. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Music, all of the platforms. It will also be posted on YouTube as well. And we'll make sure that that index is also, you can always reach out to us. Mike, maybe we pin the email in there as well. It's
Yep.
ignite@leadershipignitionteam.com. When you send that, Mike and I receive that email directly. I will say this, shameless plug. Our 2027 is starting especially the spring months. It's getting busy. We're getting booked, opportunities to come in as keynotes and stuff like that are getting smaller. We have some runway left this year for some teams and things like that. But if you guys have interest in having us coming in, please make sure to reach out because we are getting a busier schedule and we are booking dates in 27 actively, and 26 as well. We have things going on and we love sharing this. We have fantastic presentations, Mike, that we mold to whatever organization we're going to. Okay. It's not generic. We don't just throw something up that's like we talk about being repeatable. But when it comes to this, we have to be a little bit flexible with who we're talking to and how
Well,
we
the
mold
process and how we develop it is repeatable, though. We know exactly what we
Yes,
get your
yes, yes,
information.
yes.
We have the Q&A we do with you. We get your information through your index. We know exactly then what to do to make our presentation appropriate for you.
And we love it. I love the
Uh,
index. I love the advantage model. It is a refresher. And I think we got about 2 minutes left. We're going to have a 1 hour and 10-minute session. So let's talk a little bit about the book, Mike. Let's give a little
yeah,
teaser
man.
about the book.
Yeah,
How's the
man.
book
So
coming? How you doing
it,
on the book on your
we're
end?
we're doing good. So we've got a lot of work to do to get that out. I think we're probably 5 to 6 months before first draft is ready to be reviewed
I was
in
going to say
full.
we're about 3% in.
Yeah, but what I do know is that it is probably man, I won't discount it. It is the most exciting thing I've done in my professional career is to spend time with you to develop this framework and to have a book that I think is going to catch fire, dude. I mean, if we get the right marketing, the content's going to be great. Can we get the writing is going to be great. Can we get the right marketing is the question. If we can, man, I think there's going to be companies all over the world that are going to want to use this book as a lesson guide, and then they'll be calling us to help them figure out how to implement it.
Exciting stuff, man.
Yeah,
It only took
yeah.
us how many years to figure some of this out?
We started off by
50?
training guys, right? We started off just thinking we could help people in their own personal lives, and we can, and we still do. But this is bigger. This is something we can do that's really gonna really help in a big way.
Yeah, it's good to see, man. And
Yeah,
we
you
should
too.
probably do more of these podcasts.
Well, we've been busy doing this other stuff, but I think we should. I had a guy who reached out to me. I sent you a text. He said I hadn't heard. I left the industry in February and hadn't spoken to him since probably November. And he said, "Hey, just so you know, while I'm working out, I love listening to your guys' podcasts." And so I said, "Hey, another one's on the way." So yeah, we need to do more of this because I think people are looking for the content.
So do we have the capability to be in the same room?
Yes, we now do. So now our platform that we record this on, I'll give Riverside FM a shameless plug. Riverside now has the ability for us to be in the same room and do this, which would be even more impactful, I think. So
I think we need to run the second half of this in Goshen, Kentucky.
I agree. Let's do it. We got to find time that you can
I just invited
sneak away.
myself up, bro.
Well, you love that little guest house you hang out in.
You got your. I have my own house when I go there. I may break something every now and then, but I got my own house.
I think every time is what's happened. 2 things last time.
Sabotage, sir.
There's a good chance you were set
I
up.
was sabotage. I was set up, but yes, we look forward to bringing the next episode. But let's put a little bow tie on this one, Mike. Won't you take us home? And I know I kind of covered it, but just kind of reinforce where everybody can find us.
Yep.
And let's close this out.
Like always, www.leadershipignitionteam.com for all the stuff. You can find our podcast there. You can find ways to reach out to us. You can find the leadership index, the discipline index there. Certainly Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're wherever that you're hanging out. So come find us and let's chat about it. And man, remember 2 things: discipline advantage, framework that can be leveraged anywhere you need it, and discipline index that can give you an assessment today on the gaps between where you are and where you want to be.
Absolutely, man. Well, friends, this has been a fantastic episode. We've enjoyed being back with you. Look for part 2 coming pretty quick. We won't sit on this one long because we want to get more information out. Again, if you have any questions about the advantage model, the index, or how to get a hold of us to come talk to you or your groups, please reach out. And we look forward to running it back again. But for now, Mike, as always,
Let's get lit,
let's
buddy.
get lit, baby.
See you, everybody.
See y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Ignition Team podcast. Go to our website at www.leadershipignitionteam.com to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, engage with us, and find again favorite podcast networks, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.